closing the door. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name is Tom Matrullo. I'm introducing myself. These people will be introduced soon. I'm going to offer a little brief factual background. I want to make sure you can hear me first of all.
Yeah.
Good
A
background?
little bit, a little bit louder. Yeah.
And then I'm going to add a few words about why a working group of community leaders, which we have here, felt this meeting was worth having before I introduce it. But first, the background. In the 90s, I covered large-scale developments for the Herald Tribune. And the planning process was far different from what it is today. Large-scale projects, known as developments of regional impact, or DRIs, were required by state law to undergo review by regional planning councils. I used to attend the council meetings in Fort Myers every month and watched as professional planners rigorously examined these DRIs. If something was excessive or gravely incompatible with some nearby neighborhood, regional planners had the authority to tell the developers to modify the proposal. In other words, development was subservient to the larger public good. After the regional council's review, plans were submitted to the state's Department of Community Affairs, the DCA, to ensure they met state criteria. Only then would local authorities, for example, our county commission, hold public hearings to approve or deny these proposals, vetted through this layered regulatory process. So these ambitious proposals went through 3 layers of planning before they could think about breaking ground. All this is now gone. One of the first things Rick Scott did upon taking office was to undo this process. In 2011, he dismantled the DCA, and a while later, he pulled the teeth of the regional planning councils. The only boards left with actual regulatory power over large development proposals are county or city commissions. If you've been watching growth in Sarasota over the past 12 years or so, you've seen the explosion of large-scale projects blessed by our elected officials. Lakewood Ranch's Waterside, Sky Ranch on Clark Road, Hi-Hat Ranch with a future build-out of 13,000 homes, Welland Park, and many more. Along with this expansive growth, some of our county's most distinctive places are now facing threats from powerful developers. And this gets to how and why this meeting came about. On the barrier island of Siesta Key, the Benderson Corporation wishes to build Mega-Hotels. At the Celery Fields, D.R. Horton is seeking to build 171 homes right next to the bird nesting area. And in Northeast County, the people of Old Myakka, a rural community in continuous existence since before Sarasota was a county, are looking at Lakewood Ranch's plan to pave a large part of their landscape out of existence. Each of these is a community of unique character and charm, beloved by residents and visitors alike. Each is now at risk of developer impacts that could disrupt their success, disfigure their character, and destroy their charm. The people working to protect, preserve, and improve these 3 iconic assets are looking at a worrisome paradox. What draws developers to these locations is their unique character and value. In seeking to extract private profit from that value, the developers could destroy the very qualities that make these communities irreplaceable. Usually, each of our neighborhoods tends to worry about its issues in isolation, as if we're the only one in the world that had a problem. The reality is, we all have the same problem. Our public good has become subservient to private interests. The prospect of losing any one of these three iconic areas, which you're going to hear about in a moment, is a county-wide gut punch. The prospect of losing all three could make the place we live in unrecognizable. If each threatened community stands alone in dealing with Sarasota's developer-captured board, its odds are not strong. Might our communities network to moderate or even halt this juggernaut? The possibility of a strategic network sharing information and gumption is what brought us here tonight. With us this evening are Lourdes Ramirez, Jean Doobie, and Susan Shutley. Mike Hutchinson was supposed to be here, but he got rear-ended yesterday. He's okay, but he couldn't make the meeting. Susan is sitting in for him. Each of these three leaders will briefly share what's at stake for their respective communities. Lourdes will tell us first about the Mega-Hotel issue on Siesta Key. Then the others will follow. Lourdes?
Can everyone hear?
Yeah.
Good evening. We only get 5 minutes to explain our situation, so I'll try to capture it as much as I can. Well, 5 minutes is not a lot of time, but I will tell you that if you want to go deeply into the Siesta Key issue or learn about the comprehensive plan, a week from tonight, the League of Women Voters is hosting another meeting focused on Siesta Key and comprehensive plan. So you want to come next week here at the Gulf Gate Library at 6 o'clock. So I welcome you to come to that as well. But in summary, it comes down to this. Siesta Key has been known to have the most intensive residential development per square mile in all of Sarasota County. It was true in the 1940s, and it's true today. I know if you look at downtown Sarasota, you're like, really? But we know for a fact that Siesta Key has the most intensive residential development in all of Sarasota County. So for decades, Sarasota County has been thinking, well, we can't do anything about Siesta Key because most of this development was approved in the 1940s and 50s. So what we could do, they tried down zoning in the 1980s, they tried building moratoriums, didn't work. So they said, you know what, we're gonna freeze whatever is out there on Siesta Key in 1989 is exactly what's gonna stay there. So we'll honor the higher densities of Siesta Key, we just can't add any more. And that was respected for a very, very long time, since 1989 until the Mega-Hotel was first proposed in 2019. That was the mantra. We can't increase density on Siesta Key because there's too many people out there, too many units, and it's a barrier island with a 2-lane road that connects 2 bridges. How are we going to evacuate all those people that exist today? So then comes around the first set of developers who want to propose hotels on the Key, and I was shocked. I mean, because we knew since the 1980s that the maximum density for hotels on Siesta Key was 26 units per acre, and then here is a proposal, at least one of 4, that wanted 170 units on less than 1 acre. I mean, think of it, Orlando has a maximum of 60 units per acre, and we have 3 times as much being proposed for Siesta Key. So that's when I decided to step up and do something about it. When the county approved that, I had to take them to court. And of course I sued them in state court because they violated the comprehensive plan, and that's per state statute you can't do. And then I also sued them in local court because they approved this hotel in violation of the comprehensive plan. And of course, as you know, I won both cases, and I'm glad for that. But now, the ink is bare. The ink is barely dry on the judge's decision when Benderson decides to step in. And there was quite a few policies that the state and the local government, the local courts talked about as protections for Siesta Key. They want to either drastically erase those, eliminate those, or change them for Siesta Key. And that's a big problem, because it doesn't take away the fact that we are in a coastal high hazard area and we're a barrier island. And that's the one thing I've noticed over the years, in the 10 years I've been paying attention, well actually it's been 20 years of zoning code and comprehensive plan, is that it seems like the developers have been taking parts of it away over the years. They've been decimating the comp plan. Whether it's environmental things, wetlands, anything that they can get their hands on, they've been taking away. And now their biggest obstacle, the developers' biggest obstacle is public safety. Because of all the policies that they're talking about for the comprehensive plan for Siesta Key, almost each one starts with, for public safety, do not increase hurricane evacuation times, or do not increase density. And those are the policies that Benderson wants to change or eliminate. And I think that's something we should all be concerned about, because if that's what they're going to think about on a barrier island, where else are they going to start taking away protections of, a human life, protection of public safety? So for that reason, I think we should all talk, to get together, talk about the issues, especially what might happen in your neighborhood, because I know Nokomis recently felt that as well when they talked about a development that was proposed in their neighborhood, as looking at bill control. The roads couldn't handle it, and a young lady passed away in an accident there, but the county approved it anyway. And that's the kind of thing we need to talk, because we're all affected one way or the other. I know that there are people from Northport here, and I don't know if you realize that the development that's happening in Lakewood Ranch affects you too. In what way? Well, in northeastern Sarasota County, the elevation is about anywhere from 30 to 75 feet. Well, when you get down to Venice and Northport, you're talking about 10 and 12 feet. But water runs downhill, right? And if they keep paving all northeastern Sarasota County and get rid of all the wetlands and all the pervious surfaces, no wonder you're having flooding down there. So it makes sense. That's what comprehensive plans is all about, to look at everything and see how it's affecting Sarasota County. And we're all connected, and I'm glad you're here to work together on how we address this issue. Thank you. I can take 2 or 3 questions if anybody has any questions.
Tell us again next week, what about the meeting?
The League of Women Voters here in Gulfgate Library, starting at 6 o'clock. And it's about comprehensive plans as well as Siesta Key.
That will be streamed on Facebook also.
Oh, thanks,
At least
Joyce.
that's what they're registered.
That's what they're, yes, sir.
I seem to remember reading in the article, the Sarasota Herald Tribune, that you somehow now have to pay a lot of the legal fees from the case that you won or something, is that right?
No, it's the
Okay.
opposite.
Oh.
The thing is that when I sued Sarasota County, both the state and local court, the state court, I cannot recover those legal fees, but I could recover the legal fees in local court.
Okay.
And because I won, and I'm considered the prevailing party. But we're waiting to see. But the developer's off the hook. It's only the county that has to pay. And we're still going through some of that with the county.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll pass it on to Gene Doobie of Sarasota Audubon.
I'll go behind you.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jean Doobie. I'm the president of the Sarasota Audubon Society. As you may know, our nature center is at the Celery Fields, and the Celery Fields is where the birds are, where people can go and recreate passively, where people come from all over the world, all over the country to look for birds. And I don't know if you can see this map here. This is a map of the Celery Fields. So it is 440 acres. And I must acknowledge Steve Swar here today, because when I first approached the county to let them know that we felt the Celery Fields was really a great place for birding and so forth, Steve was in charge of stormwater. He was the director of stormwater, and he got it right away. And from then on, it was a collaboration with the county and with Sarasota Audubon to make sure that this was a good area for wildlife, for birds in particular. The issue before us today, though, is that you can see it seems to be an oblong, but there's a gap right here. And this gap is what we know as the Raymond Road Farm or the Smith properties. And from, does this extend?
No, it just, it's laser.
Oh, it is. Oh, excellent. Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. So let me not go off. What I want to say is, it's right now there's an application in for a rezone for D.R. Horton to build 171 homes right there. And as you can see, let me try this again. What do I do? Oh yeah. As you can see, doesn't that belong in the Celery Fields? It belongs there. And so, way back when, we were very aware that this was a private farm, and I contacted the owners maybe 12, 15 years ago and said, concerned about whether they would be selling the farm. And they said, oh no, it's always going to be a farm, always. But fast forward, as you know, in the farming community, when the owners die or go away, the kids really don't want the property. They don't want the farm. That's basically it. So I did put them in touch with the Conservation Foundation at that time and said, maybe you should talk to them about putting it under a conservation easement. They never did. But you know, within the past several years, the Conservation Foundation also approached them and asked them to put it under conservation easement, but they weren't interested. And Christine Johnson was at our Audubon Center today talking about conservation easement. And she said you cannot have a conservation easement without a willing seller. If you don't have a willing seller, all bets are off. You can plead, you can do, you can offer, you can do everything you want. So what happened is that, let's see, let me stick to my agenda. So that's what happened. They even went to the environmentally sensitive lands program with the idea of purchasing that, but they obviously couldn't come up with enough money, I guess. I don't know for sure, because D.R. Horton came in, and we believe they've come in at $3 million more than the appraised value, so that they can put 171 homes here. So here we are. They're ready. They've submitted their application to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission has gone back to them for clarifications. I imagine this is the cycle of what happens in a rezone application. We also submitted to the Planning Commission a position paper of why this should not happen. For all of the reasons, the monetary reasons that the county has invested in the Celery Fields, Audubon has invested money in the Celery Fields. It's become a beloved place. It's a hotspot in Florida and throughout the nation for people to come for bird watching, which is a huge business, by the way. It's billions and billions per year spent on. I personally, Catherine, who is my colleague, we go to Ecuador, Costa Rica, we go to Africa looking for birds. And people come to Florida. It's one of the birdiest places in the country. They come to us. So we are bringing people in. We have guided trips. We have a nature center and so forth. So we have a lot invested in this. So we submitted the our position paper to the Planning Commission. I know they've received it. And we then put it up on our website. And we put a call to action on our website for people to, we gave them the addresses of the county commissioners. You go ahead, you let them know what you think about this proposal. I know on the grapevine that the county commissioners have got it. They have received them, and they're like a bit miffed because they're saying, what is all this stuff coming into us? And well, it's the people who really are passionate about it. Independently, one of our members set up petition on moveon.org, and that has got, last time we heard, about 6,000 signatures that have all gone to the county commissioners. So we're trying to bombard the county commission with our voice, with not only our voice, but the community voice, the friends' voice, and so forth. We've also met with the developer, D.R. Horton, and with Kimberly Horn, with the engineers. We had a meeting with them and told them why we didn't want this to happen. And of course they're trying to sweeten the deal. They're giving us, they said, okay, we could do this. Okay, we'll vegetate the ponds, we'll make a swale, blah, 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 all of that. It was an amicable meeting, but at the end of the meeting, we said, we still don't want you to put 171 homes in. That's our position. And so, the next steps that we have, the Planning Commission, maybe Tom can talk a bit more about that, but apparently in olden days, you could go, the Planning Commission meetings were open, and you could go to them, and you could plead your case. But now everything's done.
You need a DRC.
Still doing
Development
it,
Review
yeah.
Committee, DRC.
Hmm?
Development Review Committee, DRC.
Yeah, that's the yeah.
That's what you're referring to.
No, the Planning Commission.
Planning Commission is over there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but when? I mean, when? We've
It's a
been
couple
trying to
years.
find out when, and they keep putting us off, putting us off. It's become more difficult to actually engage, actually be at meetings. I think you can say, you can support that.
Yeah.
And so, we're waiting for that Planning Commission meeting so we can go and say everything that we've just said. And then, of course, the Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and that is an open meeting, and we will know when that is. And so at that point, we will put another call for action out to get as many people as possible into the BCC and to see what we can do. We want as many people as possible to oppose this plan because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. It's going to reduce bird life. It's going to make it more unpleasant to be on the Raymond roadside. There's going to be more traffic. The whole thing. It's just a development that doesn't belong there. So we're doing the best we can. We're a non-profit, all volunteer organization trying to pull all the stops out. So let's see what happens. Maybe some of you will get onto our website, SarasotaAudubon.org, and join that call to action. So, yes.
What's the current zoning?
The current zoning is
Open use.
open use.
Rural.
Oh, you mean,
Rural.
Is that 5 acre, 5 acre?
50, about 50.
Yeah, but what's the open use, what would be the zoning?
oh, you mean,
How many units per acre?
Hmm?
How many units per acre?
It's 49 acres, by the way. So 171 homes, you figure that out. It's pathetic.
But I wanted to know what was the current zoning.
The current zoning, is it open use
I believe
rural?
it's open use rural.
And
Yeah.
what does that, how many units per acre does that mean?
Well, I mean, that's basically,
1 through 5.
Yeah.
I think it's 1 to 5.
I think it is
One
1
per
per
5.
5, absolutely.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that's what they do, they want you to put, 4 houses on an acre or whatever.
They want to rezone, I mean, they're now saying that the urban service, the urban services boundary keeps moving.
Yeah,
Okay.
Backing up, did Horton hold a public workshop?
Yes.
Yes, on Zoom.
It was a Zoom thing, and with Kimberly Horn was also present actually on it, facilitated that. Yeah, no?
There you go.
Yeah,
So, from the public workshop, they have to then submit to the planning board, and then they have to have a public hearing. And that's what you want, a lot of people is at the public hearing.
right, and we're talking about the planning commission public hearing. So
The
what?
website, the PBR website has to post all of their meetings, so you can go to the website every day. Sometimes they only post them.
Right, well,
Couple days in advance.
several of us are on that list to really, find out what's going on. What seems to happen, because we had this meeting with D.R. Horton back maybe in November. So, and the plan was, we thought, before we had that meeting, we thought it was going to the planning commission, and they would make their decision sometime late last year. And it would be at the BCC maybe before the end of the year, but everything gets spinned out. And you wonder what the spinning out is all about. You know, whether you're gonna lose interest. Because believe me, our members keep saying, what's going on, what's going on, what's going on? And we keep saying, well, we're waiting for the planning commission. So it's almost I don't know if it's a strategy, but that's what it feels like.
Do you have a lawyer involved who can look for things that they
No.
might, no, so.
If anybody
I'm
wants
not a
to.
lawyer, but I'm telling you.
If anybody
we
wants to
learn from
come.
experience.
I
Get a good lawyer.
really think it's going to come down to persuasion, which happened
No.
with the quad parcels.
Legal, you have to catch them on something, because they do not listen to us. That's why we're here tonight. Voices are not heard by our commission.
Lawsuits are. Know that.
Lawsuits are listened to very.
Okay, well, if any lawyer wants to step forward and do environmental regulations, be happy to have them on board. Anybody, any other, yes, sir? Yes.
Okay, hi. Have you looked at the environmental status of the land? It was a farm, right?
Right.
So, you know they had a lot of arsenic on the celery fields. Your land probably has the same thing. That's what we dealt with at the Gate Golf Course. That will stop them and make them have to.
Well, yes and no, but they don't have to test for arsenic. They don't officially have to test for arsenic, I don't think.
But you can break it out, that's what I'm saying. They're not moral.
Right.
They don't care about all of your they don't care about it. It's just their nature. What
But
can I
that's
say?
gonna happen
That's why you
after the
start bringing-
rezone. It's
That's
after the
right.
rezone that
No,
any
no.
arsenic.
Let me just say this.
Okay.
You should do what you want, do what your lawyers say, however, lesson learned, we did the rezone too. They wanted 106 units on 49
Right.
acres. The 49 acres caught my ear.
Right.
And they went 170 on yours.
Right.
How are they gonna do stormwater? How are they gonna do infrastructure? How are they going to check for arsenic? And you put this out, but you put it out to media too, and just raise the question.
We definitely have raised the question about arsenic because we went through the same issues at the quad parcels. But apparently, they do not have to test for arsenic until after the rezone. Until after the rezone.
But that should bring it
application.
up, you need to bring it up now.
Yeah.
Learn from us, cause that's what we were told too. We had 36 counts of anti-comprehensive, things that they were doing. None of that meant anything.
Right.
So I was just saying, do that, but really
Well,
start
talk to me
bringing this up
later.
and investigating.
Yeah, talk to me later and we'll see what we can, that's why we're here actually, to try and help out. So, any other questions? Yes.
I think if you ask for an environmental impact study before the rezone request, they have to come up with a pretty good excuse not to do so.
You're talking they, you mean the developer?
Well, the developer will have to pay for it.
Right, but who do you
Yeah,
ask?
they usually do through fees and so forth.
Yeah.
I'm just
You ask
wondering,
for planning.
it doesn't cost anything to just put it out there.
Right.
That we need an environmental impact study. If you want this rezoned, give it to us.
Okay, well, that's some good ideas and good thoughts, and we'll see.
Does DR Horton own that property now?
No,
No, so it's in the
it's contingent. It's
contingent,
contingent.
okay.
Upon the rezone.
Okay.
It's contingent upon the rezone. Did you have a question?
I think that you would bring up the environmental impact study to the planning department. Saying that for this project, they needed an environmental impact study.
We'll ask them. We've definitely brought up the arsenic issues, and they've said that's something that the developer will take on after the rezone has gone through. I mean, that's what the planning
It's
commission
too
told
late.
us. So whether they're lying or not, or just misinformed, I don't know, because we did ask the question, yes.
Well, it seems to me that, with all the development happening at High Hat and Waterside, and Celery Fields was built to handle the stormwater of the present, the community development. Now we're adding, 30,000 homes, and they're all using the same stormwater facility to run, I don't know exactly.
Right,
but-
I understand the point,
Okay,
yeah.
and, there was a study, I think in 2021, that, stormwater survey saying that there's a lot of areas that are deficient in, being able to handle the capacity of the stormwater. So it seems to me that if you could somehow convince the county that, they should be adding onto their stormwater facility, that's a big deal, because they've approved so many developments, and, you've got the same Filthy Creek Canal A is handling the stormwater now for a lot more homes.
Well, the stormwater people, from my understanding, is that they were interested in taking this and absorbing it into the Celery Fields, but if the county purchases anything, they can only do it at fair market value. So that's the rub. Let's pretend that this is worth $5 million. D.R. Horton comes in with $8 million. Yeah, and so, what can you do? Hang on, there's somebody there. Yes.
Might I suggest that in my mind anyway, the purpose of this meeting is to figure out a way to attack all of these issues.
Right.
Not just resolve one tonight.
Right.
With a whole bunch of suggestions, although they're all good.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how we can deal with the county commissioners and the county planning commission and get the things accomplished we want to accomplish.
Yeah, no, that's a very good idea. Very good thought, so, yes.
I don't know all the specifics. Does anyone know where, the new admin building is going on 75? Is that anywhere near the Celery Fields?
Yes, it's right next to the new Publix that's going on.
Where is that on the map?
It's gonna be, it's about here, over here.
It's right in there. Oh, across the street in that plaza?
You know where the Fruitville Library is? You know where the,
Fruitville is?
yeah, we know where the Fruitville Library, opposite the Fruitville Library, yeah. It's a big mess up there on the north side of the Celery Field, huge. 2 apartment complexes, plus plus that, which Benderson switched with the county, by the way, and that was a bait and switch, actually, so.
Well, point being is, they're actually going to be housed in that area too, so they have some kind of responsibility to protect the area.
Yes, but,
You would think so.
Of course, that's sort of a fundamental thing, that's a position we're coming from, but, we'll see. We're trying. So it's somebody else's turn now.
I'm trying to get it where you don't have it wrapped around your feet.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good evening, I'm Susan Shetley. I'm here speaking about Old Myakka and the Lakewood Ranch Southeast Comprehensive Plan Amendment, because Mike and Eileen, as Tom mentioned, got in a little fender bender on where else, Fruitville Road, but they're all right. Lakewood Ranch Southeast encompasses over 4,000 acres, and they got a comprehensive plan amendment approved to allow a maximum of 5,000 dwelling units, but it also included 3,000 additional dwelling units that they will be able to sell as transfer of development rights. What they did is they rewrote the 2050 plan, which is one chapter of our comprehensive plan. So you have one chapter that's applying to the majority of the eastern part of Sarasota County. And for a long time, they all thought the base comprehensive plan went away, but we kept reminding them about all these larger goals and objectives in our comprehensive plan that they still apply to everything. So Rex Jensen, head of Lakewood Ranch, didn't want to deal with the details and all of the careful balancing that was in the original 2050 plan. So what they were essentially allowed to do was come in and rewrite the 2050 plan just for their property. So they don't have to follow all the requirements that everybody else, hi-hat, big villages, okay, but they're following the 2050 plan. Rex was allowed to write a new chapter, a new overlay, the village transition zone, that's supposed to be a transition between villages and rural, or villages and hamlet. So it was an over 500% increase in the density allowed on this land compared to the existing underlying zoning. So the existing zoning, which was OUE and OUR, would have allowed 717 rural homesteads. And now they bumped it to 5,000 that they're allowed to build on this land. Mike Hutchinson and Eileen Fitzgerald, longtime neighbors of Burn Creek, which this land extends from University Parkway all the way, and where University would extend if it were extended, all the way down to Fruitville Road. And Burn Creek is a 5 and 10 acre rural development that's surrounded by this Lakewood Ranch Southeast. They, like Lourdes, were appalled. Our whole community out there was appalled. The impacts include significant loss of agricultural lands, which are supposed to be an important state resource and to be preserved, and nobody's paying attention to that at all. The roadways are horribly deficient. Sections of Fruitville Road currently operate at LOS F, and once you hit F, it doesn't matter how bad it is, it stays F. So we think we're at really bad F, not just barely F. And the road improvements that will be required to try and make this whole area operate, it's going to take at least 10, 15 to 20 years for those roadways to be built, for that road system out there to function. So like Tom mentioned, like Lourdes mentioned, health and safety. The board is not protecting the public health, safety, and welfare the way they should. So also on this one, so they came in, and one of the things they did is significantly reduce the amount of open space required. Open space is where you have lands that wildlife can traverse and have wildlife corridors. The underlying zoning would have had 80% open space. Hamlet, which was what the 2050 designation was, would have been 60%, and what Mr. Jensen got was all the way down to 43%. So significant loss of open space, reduction of buffers along Fruitville Road. It's supposed to be a 500-foot buffer along Fruitville Road. They reduced it to 50. So Mike and Eileen sued, using the same excellent attorney that Lourdes has had involved in her cases. We thought we had a really, really good case. The judge listened. We presented lots of evidence. We had an outstanding planning expert testify for us. But in the end, the administrative law judge sided with the developers in the county. So the process right now is that we've just filed exceptions to the judge's order. That's part of the administrative review process. And now the department that issues the final orders is, I believe, called the Department of Commerce. Can figure out where they're headed. So we filed our exceptions, then we wait for them to issue the final order. They will either amend the ALJ's order or ask her to revise it, or they'll approve it as it's written. Then there's a period of time in which you can appeal to district court. Mike and Eileen intend to appeal if it's necessary. We believe we have excellent reasons why the order should not stand as written. But again, called Department of Commerce, you kind of know where they're probably going to head with it. So let me show you real quickly. So this red, this is the area of Lakewood Ranch Southeast. It's huge. Windward, the village by Lakewood Ranch that somebody mentioned is right over here. But separating them are two separate, very large areas with conservation easements on them. One the county bought years ago, spent $9 million or more to buy the development rights off that land, and another one was deeded to the, I believe, the Nature Conservancy by a resident out in East County. So in between the urban development that now exists in this area is wildlife corridors, wild lands, lands that are not going to be developed. And again, they're plopping urban development, urban sprawl development that does not comply with any of the 2050 requirements out in a rural area. The impact on drainage, the impact on the roads, the impact on light. If you want to see the stars, where do you go? You go out east. You can't see the stars anywhere in Midtown or downtown. So all of those issues, the quality of life and the health and safety of rural residents, as well as everybody in the county, are threatened by this development. So we have this here. This is Hyatt. So Hyatt's already gotten a master development order. They will be coming in with rezones in the relative near future. So there's a lot happening out there, and these are just the ones that we're involved with, and we know there are a lot more out there that you're involved with. So one of the goals is to start putting stuff on this map so we can all see it and start helping each other with information, maybe, ways to identify retired people in the community that can help with some of the analysis of things, a retired planner, a retired stormwater engineer, a retired transportation engineer, because the processes that are coming up, we have to have experts testify. There has to be, they're quasi-judicial hearings, and I'm not gonna go deep into that because it's too much for tonight. But you have to be prepared in certain ways to provide evidence that the board has to consider. They may still go off and do what they're gonna do, but we need to fight them as best we can. So it's a pretty complicated proposal that they've done. We still believe we're gonna win. We're gonna keep fighting it. And there are lots of other things already coming down the pike out there that we're also fighting. Any questions?
Why wasn't the conservation lands the transition area? What was their argument? You were there in court.
They managed to, it was pretty kind of interesting. Every map that Lakewood Ranch produced related to their proposal put labels over the conservation areas so that they weren't obvious and they weren't visible. And we tried our best to point that out to the administrative law judge, that this isn't a continuation, this isn't a step down in density, because we've already got this big, huge protective buffer, but we apparently weren't successful in that. But exactly. But so they're extremely sophisticated in how they present things. It took me a long time before I ever even noticed that, because I was like, well, where's the Heritage Range conservation easement? They covered it up with a label, so it didn't even show up. So they're really good at what they do, and we've got to get just as good. We got to be just as good at fighting it, and we can. I honestly believe we can.
So, I didn't hear you correctly, maybe it's the same issue, but to the left of the first block is two parcels,
The red one.
the red block.
The red one.
That
Okay,
one.
in between there and Lakewood Ranch, there are two parcels, you said?
In here there's a continuous,
Conservation.
there are two separate conservation easements, but they connect, and they go all the way from here, all the way down here.
Okay.
So
What's
the
in between them?
board was supposed to want we were promised connected greenways, connected wildlife corridors.
Right.
Oh.
So what's in between that conservation area and the red, proposal, right?
Their development would be, well, the Heritage Range conservation easement goes here, and then the other one, which I don't know that it's even got a name, but Mary Clark
Okay.
donated that, so it goes all the way down here
And how far east does it go?
to about here.
And
It's
what's in
broader up
between?
here. This is all Lakewood Ranch Southeast. It comes here. This is Burn Creek, the rural development. Lakewood Ranch Southeast goes all the way out past the S-curve, if you know Fruitville and the S-curve. So it comes all the way out here, goes all the way up to University. They're gonna build a 4-lane road called Bourneside to connect University to Fruitville and dump that traffic
Through
out on
conservation
Fruitville.
area?
Yes, it doesn't work anymore. Sorry.
I think your question is that their development butts right up against the conservation lands.
Yeah, they're this whole area of land that they're gonna develop.
Alright, so I'm with him, so where did the town get the legal right to change conservation area to what they want to development area?
They, Rex was really smart. Back, about 15 years ago, people in our area fought a major transmission line by FPL that was gonna come through Burn Creek. And we fought it and we successfully got it relocated. We got it relocated to come through a northern part of, Rex Jensen's property, Lakewood Ranch property, or SMR. And it skirted the conservation easement. He got the conservation easement language with the county changed to allow future roadways to cross through, and they would buy the land back from the county. And that's what they've done. So they bought, it's a little corner of the conservation easement that their road's gonna go through, and I haven't found where they've actually paid money for it yet. I'm still looking.
Does the county have the right to sell that conservation area to a developer?
They had the right to sell that land back to Rex Jensen, back to SMR.
Not just
No,
an easement?
it had to be just for particular purposes. But the county didn't buy the underlying land, they just bought the development rights.
So can the county sell development rights?
The county could take those, they haven't done it yet, but I think theoretically they could take those development rights and sell them somewhere else. But
That's what you're up against.
But the county's TDR program hasn't ever really gotten off the ground because they keep letting they keep giving the developers density. So the only way TDR program works is if you need more density and you can't get it on the land you have, you go off and buy it somewhere else and bring it. And they just give it all to them, so there's no need to buy it.
Your legal hearing, was that after the county commission had approved zoning changes?
No, they've not done rezones yet. This is just comp plan amendment level. So what was approved by the county was a comprehensive plan amendment. And Mike and Eileen's lawsuit was filed before the legislature extended the loser pays is the way we refer to it. So last legislative session, what was originally just gonna apply to, a tax on development orders like Lourdes did. And they included now comp plan amendment challenges. So Mike and Eileen, we don't believe that had retroactive effect.
How many county commissioners are required to change the county comp plan, and how far away is the reasonable development side from being reached?
4 county
The-
Majority.
Well, it's a majority, unless, we have two provisions in our, charter. One is, and I'm speaking from, I haven't looked at it recently, so I could be a little off on this, but it's a super majority for increase in density in the eastern area. It may be really east of the urban service boundary, I'm not remembering the language exact. Then it's a unanimous requirement if they wanna move the urban service boundary, which is why they put the countryside line in the 2050
So
plan.
4 commissioners aligned to change the comp plan to facilitate this development?
I believe this one was a unanimous vote,
Wow.
as I recall. Most of them are.
Five people.
Is there any political action committee to try and change the composition of the county commission?
We need one. I mean, ultimately, the bottom line is, we've got to fight like crazy and make them aware, make them uncomfortable, hit them with everything we've got.
Gotta
But,
get a new commissioner.
but ultimately,
Yes.
ultimately, different people need to be elected. You know,
When is the next commission election?
coming up in November. And the state level too, so the state law, as I think Tom mentioned, when Governor Scott took office, he basically did away with the growth management in Florida as we know it. Everybody still thinks it's there, it doesn't exist. So there's a few little bits and pieces of it left, and we're using them to the best we can. But ultimately, we gotta have changes in Tallahassee too.
Yeah, but the bottom line is, unless you stop the people coming, you're not gonna be able to stop this, okay? You're not gonna be able to. The developers own this business, and they know how to operate. Unless you get people to stop coming to Sarasota County, you're not gonna stop this progress.
See, and I don't think.
Look at the other coast, I mean.
But again, that was then accommodated. It doesn't have to be accommodated.
I know, I'm sorry, but.
In terms of public health and safety, when they amended the comp plan and they argued it in court, what did they say? How did they say they were gonna deal with drinking water and dirty water?
They had county utilities department express the opinion that there was adequate water supply. They had the county stormwater department express the opinion that the proposal met existing county regulations, which in my opinion does not mean that there won't be stormwater issues. But.
We're talking dirty water, toilets.
Well, they will, the utility said there's adequate capacity. Now, they did already build a large, water retreatment plant at the entrance of Monterey Bay, which used to be, Hampton Lakes. So they're already building infrastructure. And one of the big selling points to the commission was that there is the Lakewood Ranch Stewardship District, which is an independent special district, kind of like Reedy Creek and Walt Disney, that can go in and front end the major facilities, and then the properties within the development get assessed by that entity rather than the county. And county was like, that's great, somebody else builds it, they deal with it, we don't have to deal with it. They thought it was just great. So.
It's probably time that we move on from this.
Can we do just?
Yeah.
He says hand up really
I'd
quick.
like to say something. To make a UDC text amendment change takes 3 commissioners. What you were discussing a minute ago, to change something in the comp plan takes what they call a supermajority, which is 4 out of 5. We have, without discussing names, we have 1 commissioner who seems to be listening. We have an election coming up where there is somebody who says they'll listen more to the community. Certainly look into that, because that would remove the supermajority. And of course, if we can get right now it's kind of a revolving door with commissioners going in and out of working for developers, people like Kimley Horn. So we need to get more people who are running for commission, and definitely look at these candidates who are not necessarily in the pockets of the developers, to really make a change and not allow them to once we have commissioners who aren't just gonna rubber stamp this, we have a better chance of stopping these changes. So, did anybody come here from a neighborhood that's embattled right now that we haven't talked about already? For example, Seared, is anybody from Seared here? Could you maybe give us a couple of minutes of your experience?
Thank you. My name is Miles Toder. Once upon a time, I used to teach urban planning up at Florida State University in Tallahassee. Do you want to microphone?
Who's gonna get the microphone? Get the microphone.
So I studied this and I taught this for 20 years. And then I went overseas as an American diplomat. And taught this and studied this overseas. And I'm astounded to come back to Florida after retiring from the State Department to see that everything we put in place in the 80s has basically been torn apart. And so it's obviously disappointing. But beyond being disappointing, it's going to destroy what we came to live in Florida for. The things that attracted most of us here, I think, are at risk. And so out in Misty Creek, where I live, and in the Bee Ridge neighborhood, we're now fighting a school. It's a private school, which wants to locate on Bee Ridge Road. And the school isn't the problem, it's the site. The site is too small, it doesn't fit into the, the land use pattern out there, and it was railroaded through the Planning Commission and the County Commission with the same experience that you all have had. And so it's a process problem that we're suffering from. And we know better. I mean, the US is sort of a pioneer when it comes to balancing economic growth, social objectives, and environmental objectives. And our pioneering efforts in the 60s and the 70s resulted in land use planning and public policy that found that balance, that cleaned up the toxic waste sites, the Superfund sites, and that improved the sustainability of our lives here in Florida. And we taught that to the rest of the world, and the rest of the world benefited. Now it seems that we're going in the other direction, and we're giving up the Balancing Act, and we're going to run into a place like Florida with its fragile environment and its warming climate, where it's going to become probably unlivable. And there is a chance to stop that. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the solution is political, because there's plenty of room to work around the laws and to contravene the regulations. And ultimately, you need public decision makers in the council, the commissioners and the planning commission who look at the future, who understand the Balancing Act, and who take it seriously, and who don't have the conflicts of interest that we've seen. So it's a pretty simple solution. Probably more communities within Sarasota County are going to have to suffer the same fate that you all have suffered, and that we're starting to feel out in Bee Ridge. And so politically, we need to do something about that. I will say, as a technocrat, that working with the professional planners is a good place to start in Sarasota County. And some of them may be my former students, I'm afraid to say, but we speak the same language. And so getting some urban planners like myself involved, who are retired, who aren't doing this for money anymore, who can talk the same language as the technocrats in the county, getting lawyers who are retired from various aspects of law, dealing with the county's lawyers, seems to be promising. I've been disappointed with some of the planners, but they're willing to talk to us. And let me tell you, a lot of the professional planners in the county are not happy with what they're doing. They're not happy with the compromises being made. They're not happy with the politicians not listening to their expertise. And they're not happy with some of their peers who are basically prostituting themselves with their engineers, their architects, and their planners and developers who aren't doing what they were trained to do. They should know better. So I think we do need to work more closely with the county staff. Most of them are miserable and would love to get out, and probably they want to work for developers instead of the county, because that's where the money is. But we need to find those who are willing to listen. We need to help them understand how to do their jobs. And then politically, we need to work to make some of the changes. Unfortunately, as I understand it, the way the commissioners are vetted and elected here is on a partisan basis, right? So you have Republicans and you have Democrats. And right now, I think the Republicans are not only in the majority in the county, but also certainly on the county commission. Many local government around this country have nonpartisan local elections. And so the political parties aren't involved in selecting local leaders or county leaders. But in Florida, it's done, I think, based on a partisan basis. But you know what? Most of my neighbors in Misty Creek are Republicans. And they're seeing the same sort of things that people like myself, who happens to be a Democrat, are. And that is, we're not doing the balancing between environmental, social, and economic objectives. We know better. We know how to do it. It's part of what made this country great, and it's part of what I've been teaching the rest of the world as they move from very, very fragile democracies to more stable, sustainable systems. So to see us going in the opposite direction of everything that we've been teaching the rest of the world is really, really irritating. So,
Tragedy, actually.
yeah.
What is your name?
Miles Toder, T-O-D-E-R. I used to teach at Florida State and USF up in Tampa. And like I said, to see all of the comprehensive planning and the growth management that the state was well known for back in the 80s and 90s, and to see what the former governor has done, is that's a catastrophe.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So if we focused on the, not individuals, but processes that create a system, we can talk across party lines. They wouldn't even know Democrat or Republican. So we should focus on the processes that would lead to the vision as a collective. And so if we focus mainly on that, we could talk across party lines and put candidates in place that would like be for the processes, you know, that would change a system. And everybody would vote for that.
Yeah.
Is that what you're,
Look, we have the technology and the know-how to mitigate even the most high-density development in the most fragile environment. We know how to do that, right? We're not, okay? We're not mitigating these impacts. When we went in front of the Planning Commission, and we went in front of the County Commission, and we explained as a homeowners associations all of the damage that some of this development is going to do, this new little school they have put out there, they didn't want to listen. They didn't care. They told us that we were a bunch of old people who were obstructing progress. And just to make us more irritated, they offered to buy our houses from us if we didn't want to live there. So I thought I'd never hear that from public commissioners, but that's what they said. Wow. And so
Our
it's a tragedy.
commissioners are private property, they're not public.
Sorry?
Our commissioners are private property at this point.
But look, we're good as a society in balancing private interests in property and the greater public interest. We've been doing it for generations. Why can't we do it now? There's always going to be a public interest in private property. That goes without saying, right? There's no absolute private property rights, right? The fact that we can own private property is by the grace of God and the fact that our system of government encourages and allows it. But it's not absolute, right? There's a public interest, and we know how to incorporate that public interest in private property. Why can't we do it today in Florida? I mean, really?
Corruption.
That's great, but
That's right.
but our progress is what creates this opportunity, okay? Without that progress, we don't have the opportunity. So explain to me why a school can be such a disruptive factor in your community. I don't get it. I really don't.
It doesn't have to be. You can
Well,
mitigate-
why was it? Why was it?
Oh, I don't know. They thought they could do it that way because they did. Because someone has to
That doesn't
pay for it.
explain it to me, though.
I know. But you have to pay to mitigate some of the impacts. So the noise, the light, the traffic,
Oh, okay.
it's all solvable, right?
It's a
But
school.
they just didn't care. And that's a shame. Thank you.
I'm turning this over for a minute. Celery fighting Benderson down at, what is Stickney Point.
Hi, I'm Sarah Kochman, and what I'm gonna try to do is actually give you some specific things you can actually do, because that is what you're really looking for, I think. And we can all talk to each other till we're blue in the face, but it's not gonna do a damn thing. So first off, your commissioners will not talk to you if anything has been filed yet. If an application is filed, they will not talk to you. So that's a conflict, but you can talk to your respective commissioner about anything you want. You can talk to them about Myakka, because it hasn't been filed yet. You can talk about the Audubon, the Celery Fields, it hasn't been filed yet.
Can't talk about it.
You can. They will talk to you. They can't stonewall you and say it's a conflict because the application hasn't been filed. And also, you can say, I would like to discuss a theoretical application. I did this with Al Mayo when he used to be on the county commission, and we sat in his conference room and I said, let's say there's an application on a busy corner. And let's say, and that's exactly how we phrased it, just the two of us in this room, and I got my points across theoretically. There's always a way around it. Now, what I would suggest is you get your DRC report, the Development Review Committee report. You can get that. You first, most importantly, get to know the planner that is assigned to your proposed application. You will become best buddies with this person. You will be constantly on the phone with this person. And you're always nice, you're always professional, it's never personal, it's just business. And that is what you do, and they will email you the DRC reports. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm having so much trouble because I'm old. And I can't find stuff on the website. In fact, the county has made it even more impossible to find any documents on the website, and now they have revamped it again. So now it's even worse. So you talk to your best bud, that is your assigned planner. Could you please email me the DRC report? They can't say no. So you will get it. On there is each department's head, or whoever they have assigned to that application. Their name and their phone number and their email is on this DRC report. If there's anything in this DRC report that you want to discuss, for example, the arsenic. How are things going to be remediated? What can we do? Can we dive a little deeper in this? You contact each person on that DRC report, because even when the application gets filed and they start asking for reports, they're going to remember what you said, and they can ask for more. They can make it a little harder on the developer. Your allies are staff. Your allies will never be the county commission, will never be the planning commission. You work through county staff, because most of them are good people. So that would be my first suggestion. You ask for your favorite buddy, your planner. You ask to see every filing. You ask to say every refiling. The last time Benderson went before the county commission where they had refiled again, there were 4 errors in the filing. And I kept asking for him, and it was a new planner, bless his heart, as we say in the South. He was a new planner, and I kept finding errors. I happen to have a planning background. I was chairman of a planning board up in New Jersey, even though I'm born and raised here in Sarasota. Lived in New Jersey for 36 years. So I was going over every filing with a fine-tooth comb. What do you mean? They've got the wrong setback. They've left off the buffer. They can't have 100 feet here. They can only have 50 feet here. And I'm finding the errors. The planners are busy. They've got a whole ton of work to do. Unfortunately, they're not being as diligent as they could be. I don't think it's for any nefarious purpose. I just think they're freaking busy. So you have to go through it, and it's not that hard. Believe me, it's not that hard. You'll just go through it. Does this make sense? Is this what the rule is? And there are people in this room that know the rules. We've been down this road many times. So rely on people that have walked this road before you. 10 years ago, I contacted Tom Matrullo. I had seen his name in the newspaper. And I then looked him up on Facebook, and I think I sent you a message. Help me! You know, what the hell is this Benderson and what's going on? So you call on people that have walked in your shoes. So that's the first thing. You catch errors. And the planner will make the developer do it right, because they don't want anything going to court. They want to make sure everything is done correctly. Let's see. find your new friend at FDOT, Florida Department of Transportation. Any state roads that are near any of your developments, you find your FDOT buddy, and you start talking to them. Very famously, there was a letter written on Siesta Promenade by FDOT saying it was a disaster and not to do it, and the FDOT person emailed it to me and didn't say why. It just all of a sudden appeared in my inbox. And I shared it with the media, and it was all over the papers. And it continues to be brought up to this day. There's one remaining lawsuit on the Siesta Promenade project. And that letter still is circulating. So you get to know your FDOT person. You talk about traffic lights, you talk about timing, what are you gonna do? Can you do another study? You are gonna be, I'm Jewish, you're gonna be a nudge, okay? You are gonna be a nudge in a nice way to every single person, every staff person, every state person, anybody that can help you. Let's see, oh, this is a good one. Do not believe Kimley Horn. They lie, they lie, they lie. I would swear on a stack of Bibles that they lie. I have been told lies on the phone to my face. It is beyond belief how much Philip DeMaria lies. So follow up with everything. If he tells you one thing, look to see if something is filed that way, because no doubt it will not be. Do not believe your developer, especially if it's Benderson. A side note, the very last hearing we had before the county commission, they had filed for a small rezone, which I had no problem with, but they wanted to add parallel parking on our streets. The planning commission actually heard us and approved the plan without it. Said, do not put parallel parking here, they deserve a buffer like they were promised. And they pulled the plan. We're at the county commission meeting, the final hurrah here, and Todd Mathis, who should rot in hell, goes up there and says, I have an alternate plan I'd like to offer, and he's waving this piece of paper around. And, oh, an alternate plan? Why, of course, let's hear it. And they had put the parallel parking back. Now, wasn't advertised, wasn't in the packet, no staff report, nothing. Now, we talked about county staff being frustrated. We then went on break for lunch, right after they said this. And I marched myself up to the planner and started cussing up a storm. And what are you gonna do? And he was blindsided. He says, I don't know what I'm gonna do. He says, I had prepared a report for the planning commission. I didn't have anything for the county commission. I have to go back to my desk and I have to think about this. I don't have to figure out what I'm gonna do, because I have to explain it, because this particular plan was in violation of several parts of the comp plan and have been outlined for the planning commission. We come back from break and the chairman never called on staff to get a report. Went straight to public comment and then they voted. So, staff, he was furious. I have since spoken to him about other things that are going on. But the point being, staff's heart is in the right place. Now, he couldn't raise his hand and jump up and down and say, please call on me. He came back in ready, and they never even looked at him. So, look, it was overheard at the planning commission in the lobby when the meeting was over, when Benderson lost. My neighbor overheard Todd Mathis talking, and he said to one of the other guys he was with, he said, don't worry, we have our ways, we'll get it. They have their ways. The developer has the opportunity, especially a Benderson type, to meet with the commissioners and say it's on another topic. They meet with them on another topic and then, oh, by the way, have you ever thought about X, Y, and Z that pertains to the upcoming application? I have been told this by a commissioner, that it happened to this person. And he wondered why this odd topic was coming up of parallel parking when they were supposed to be discussing something else. So that's why I'm saying don't trust, deal with staff only, and that is where your power is. As was mentioned before, you've got to fundraise alternate candidates. Try to slow down your process so we can go till after the election. And don't forget the infill projects that we've got going on. I know that's on your agenda about other things, other projects. You've got the infill going at Sarasota Square Mall, 1,200 condos plus the retail. And you've got Benderson that bought Southgate, where Aldi is, and they want to put another Siesta Promenade mixed-use project there. Lastly, talk to everyone you know, everyone you see. You're standing in the grocery line, talk to them. Get emails, get a Facebook group, get a Facebook page. Get everybody, I don't care where you are, talk to everybody. Because most people here in Sarasota live in their bubble. They go to the beach, they play golf, they play tennis, they play pickleball, and they go to the theater. And that's it, and that's all they want to know. Until something pops up in their neighborhood. Well, why didn't somebody do something about this? You are somebody. You are they. They should have done something about it. And just talk, walk a dog. Everybody you meet when you're walking your dog. I'm not kidding. That has how I got hundreds and hundreds of emails and phone numbers. Good luck. I will try to help you all, and I know Lord as well as much as possible.
So, Sue, that was a good, I walk my dog all the time, but that doesn't happen to me. But, we're gonna move to the fourth part of our agenda to talk about common ground, because what you're just saying, Sue, is about the fact that we all share the same problem. Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, it's Pat.
Oh, hi, Pat. I didn't recognize you the other hat.
I know, I had a bad haircut, so I got That's the way it goes. The city of Northport obviously is not county, it's got a separate commission. But you all have heard of Warm Mineral Springs, right? Maybe many of you've gone there. It is in danger of being completely compromised thanks to the city of Northport Commission. They have commissioned surveys of their community. They've ignored the responses they get. The rationale for doing this makes absolutely no sense, but they're working with a developer who plans to take, it's an 80-acre parcel. They're gonna take about 60 acres of mature forest right next to the springs and develop condos, retail, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? And the rationale originally is that the buildings at Warm Mineral Springs needed to be fixed, renovated, okay? The city had $9 million, they needed $18 million. So they're thinking of some way to partner, and we all know that if we know Benderson and the rest of them, they always want to partner with the county, and the county gets left holding the, you know what, okay? So here, this developer has said, oh, okay, we'll help you restore these buildings in exchange for condos, et cetera, et cetera. It is not gonna be the same place, okay? It could compromise the geologic underground structures. Endangered species are at risk. And I'm just coming here on behalf of the people of the city of Northport who have really worked hard to try to have an impact on their commission. Because I think collectively, you know, maybe some of us are from Siesta Key, maybe we're all being directly impacted, but we're all a county, we're all one big community when, you know, all is said and done. And so all of us need to get together. Somehow, this group needs to really form a serious structure, and you're gonna talk about that next. But Warm Mineral Springs is at risk of being destroyed, essentially. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention if you didn't know it. Thanks, Steve.
Excuse me, I've got one other project. I'll make it quick because I know it's getting late, but just so, I'm sitting here and we're talking about strategic connections.
Can't hear you. Use the microphone.
We're talking about strategic connections in neighborhoods, and so recently we came across a project that impacts Lakewood Ranch Southeast, it impacts Myakka, it impacts the Celery Fields, and it probably is going to impact Misty Creek and that area, and that is the Hi-Hat development, and then wanting to put in a commercial borrow pit, which is really a commercial mine, and that's located in the the northwest corner, which was designated as, conservation land. So basically, believe it or not, a commercial mining operation doesn't need to go through a commercial zoning. It is handled through environmental. So they are going to create a 155-acre lake and sell 4.8 million cubic yards of fill dirt and dump 100% of that traffic out onto Fruitville Road. So if you think Fruitville Road is congested now, and we haven't even added Lakewood Ranch Southeast, we haven't even added all the development that's going up Lorraine, and fortunately, the community rallied together. Your comments about knowing staff really helped, so we met with staff. We got, fortunately, on the inside track. We were very, very vocal. We had 55 emails that went into the county commissioner. We had an hour and a half of public testimony, talking about health, safety, and welfare and the impacts to our community. And fortunately, we got this tabled, but it's only tabled. It will come back. You have to be vigilant and you have to be aware. They play games, and you just have to really tell everybody that you know about these things, because we're all connected. All of these projects, you take one by themselves and you go, oh, it's not so bad. But when you take them all together, and that's the fallacy of our current system, is not comprehensive planning. They don't look at the aggregate effect of all of their decisions, and we need to force them to. So, thank you.
Thank you. I think the library is going to be wanting to usher us out fairly soon, and we did want to hear from Susan and Rob. Who's first? Rob?
Yep.
This is on the common ground issue, just what he was talking about.
Yep. Well, ladies and gentlemen, first off, I want to say I'm so incredibly glad that everybody showed up. And secondly, I've been sitting here listening to all this, and what I really appreciate is the fact that everybody here seems to have a handle on why the hell we're here. I worked for Sarasota County for about 15 years as the environmental specialist in charge of the Neighborhood Environmental Stewardship Program. My job at that time, I retired in 2016. My job at that time was to work with existing communities on how to make them more environmentally friendly and all the things that we're talking about. And when I look back at the time that I was with Sarasota County, we got calls from people all over the world to ask, what were you doing to keep the environment so pristine and buying up lands, you know, that were gonna be built upon, and holding down the density and all the other things that go along with that. But over the years, things have changed. Staff, as you've heard so far, I can guarantee you, I worked with a lot of those folks who are still here. They are on your side. They will do their best, but you gotta remember, they're caught between a rock and a hard place. If they openly say things that could stop a project, very likely they're gonna be looking for a new job. So you have to remember, you know, don't press them, press the county commission, because that's where the changes need to be made. And I grew up in this area. basically. And back in 1953, when I was born, the population of Sarasota County was 35,000 people. You could do anything you wanted to do and not screw it up because there weren't enough of us here. So consequently, over time, I have seen the paradise that was here in those times when I used to go hunting and fishing and camping on a lot of the areas where probably a lot of you live today go away. And as part of the county, I did my best to make sure they were as environmentally sensitive as possible. And I also worked on putting together something that some of you, probably most have never heard of now, a low impact development. It was supposed to go in as a code. And when we got it to the county commission, because the county commission at that time asked us to put this together so that developers could use a new format in developing. Because when you think about it, there's only two ways of developing. One is to develop within nature, where you're actually working with what's on the site and you're keeping it as natural as you can. And the second one is to build on top of it. And that is the philosophy that developers have had today. They're going in and they're not, all of these subdivisions that are going in would not be so bad if they were done in the correct way. So that you actually had trees in your yard and you had green space and you had places to do things. Like just one little example is, think of all the stormwater ponds that are going in. When you think about that, they're making them as frequent and as big as possible because they can sell this waterfront property. But in reality, you may not need that many stormwater ponds or have that much of it. Up in North Florida, they are doing areas where instead of putting in stormwater ponds, they're putting in what they call a normally dry detention area, where all the stormwater goes to that when it rains. When it's not raining, they use it as baseball fields, parks, whatever. It's an open area for the people that live there. But the bottom line is that's what's not happening here, is that the staff is not being allowed to basically get the point across that we're not doing as good a job as we could from that standpoint. And the main thing is that what I really appreciate is the fact that for many, many years, I and the other folks here have been talking about how do we get our voices heard? And this is where the common ground portion comes up. Because what's happening to you is happening all throughout the county, just like we've been pointing out. And on the way here, on the radio, I was listening to NPR. In Lee County, they're talking about the same scenario going on down there, where they're dealing with exactly the same issues. So this is a statewide issue. But the point is that we need to unite and have a united voice to have that common ground. And so this little meeting is something that is a start. And that's all it is. That a lot of people say it's inevitable, it's going to happen, you can't stop it. Well, the bottom line is that if that's your philosophy, you're right, you'll never stop it. But if you're willing to basically do the hard work of putting the right people in place and forcing them to do the will of the people, then we've got a start and we've got a chance at this. Susan, you want to have a say?
Very quick. I was in the county attorney's office for 10 years and have found out how much harder it is on the outside to be involved in the development process. I thought I knew, and I knew the process, but from the inside. When you're on the outside, it's much more difficult to access things. It takes a lot more energy, it takes a lot more effort. Sarah was exactly right in the details of what she was talking about. And part of the common ground I would like to see this become is a way of all of us sharing our knowledge with each other and assisting on all of these issues that we're all running into. And so the county is very different from what it was when I was in the county attorney's office. And, you know, that's just a fact of life that we have to deal with. But as Rob said, if we don't stand up, we know what the answer is. The answer is that we lose. And so we have to take our shots at it, be factual, be strong, be informed, and if we can gather together and speak with a broader base of voices, they will start listening. And I'm gonna let Tom talk to you about the specific proposals we have.
20 minutes.
Okay.
If you'd like to apply for a library
Thank you all
card,
for
please
coming.
do so now. Computer patrons, all printing will need to be completed by
Again, I wanna
7:45. The computer starts shutting down at 7:45. The outside doors will be closing at 7:45. Meeting room is there. Please start gathering your materials.
I get rides with you to these meetings, I can't drive at night.
So the thing is, one of the two things I wanted just to mention before is one, as a group, as a neighborhood association, one of the things I recommend is putting together a reserve. Because even though we are going to work on getting resources for you with retired urban planners, lawyers, whatever, you may need to pay for professional help. But you don't want to wait till something is being proposed in your neighborhood to say, oh my God, now I gotta find somebody and I gotta pay for that, now we gotta raise funds. Because it is very costly to have a legal challenge. And of course you want to have the county commission vote the right way for you so you don't have to have a legal challenge. But you need lawyers, you need professionals. So my suggestion for neighborhood groups is start to put together a reserve. Have those cake sales, have those luncheons or dinners where you charge a certain amount of money and start putting together the money that you may need for your zoning. And you can call it an emergency fund, so if there is a, God forbid, a hurricane event and you can use it for something in your neighborhood, fine. Narrow the use for it, but start raising the money now because you may need it in the future. I think that's important. And I also think you need a committee in your neighborhood to start vetting these county commissioners. There's 3 seats available, and even if it's not your district, start vetting them. And we all know that Ron Cutzinger doesn't have an opponent yet. They hope one shows up. We know that District 3, we have Tom Knight, who's going against Neil Rainford, who is a developer lackey. I'm gonna say it. I think we have to be really honest who they are. And Mike Moran's going off the board, yay. And so, but the person who's running for that seat, and she's unopposed, is a nightmare, Teresa Mass. So we really need to make sure, hopefully get somebody to oppose her as well. So we have to be very blunt, and we have to start vetting these.
When will we meet again?
Okay, that's coming up next.
Tom's doing the next step.
So I need to end this real quick, but I wanted you all to know before you leave that we are considering what future workshops, speakers, topics, and so forth that we will be looking at. And we have a list of them, they're on the agenda, I'm not gonna waste your time now. But for the next meeting, it is scheduled for February 21st, and our speaker will be John Thaxton. And if you know John Thaxton, you know, okay. Now, we don't have a time or a location. You have an email address at the bottom of your agenda. Please write to us, and we will send you the information when we have it for that meeting. It's Sarasota Citizen Action Network @gmail.com. Scan, right? Okay. All right. It's a little small. We're hoping to get a bigger crowd for John Thaxton, and we will. So thank you all very much for coming and for contributing. This is a brilliant group. I want to see you guys become the kernel, the core of something even greater.
Thank you.